Hello class, welcome to Lab 0. And since this is Lab 0, I would like to explain homework 0. And since this is Lab 0, I would like to explain homework 0 as well. So before we do anything, let's go to Blackboard real quick. Okay, so we're gonna go here to assignments, and over here you're gonna find the description for homework 0. To read the description, you need to go to homework 0. You can do it by just simply clicking on the link over here, which is gonna send us to the website of our course, where you are required to complete these tasks over here. In this video, we're gonna complete task number 1. Okay, and once you have completed task number 1, we're gonna submit the outcome over here in labs. You're gonna find over here the submission box, which is lab 0, and that's about it. So let's get started. I'm using Windows 10 in a virtual machine because I'm assuming most of you are using Windows 10 or Windows 11. But if you're using a Mac for the course, most of the things that I'm going to be doing here, you can do it almost the same way, except the installation of the program that we're going to install. For the rest, you will have to try to translate the things from how I do it in Windows to your Mac. I wish I can have a Mac where I could make videos for you so that they can be one-to-one if you have a Mac, but unfortunately I don't have an Apple computer that I can make videos for you with. So if you encounter any issue, you can reach out to me in Slack and we can try to solve them together. Just try to do the lab early so that if you encounter a problem, you're not bottlenecked by the time and get frustrated in the end. This lab is going to take a little bit longer than the other labs because it's the first lab in the first place, and because it is by default a little longer because we're going to be learning a new technology from zero to as long as we get. So with that said, let's get started. Homework 0, complete lab 0. So we're going to go over here. I'm going to click on lab 0, which has the instructions for lab 0. So we're going to start with question number 1. And question number 1 says, install Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code is the code editor that we're going to be using in the course. You are welcome to use any other code editor, but if you encounter any issues, you are on your own. But if you're using VS Code, as we're using over here, I will be able to provide you with better assistance instead, in case you encounter any issue. I have had students in the past who use other editors like Atom or Sublime. But they just find a way to translate everything that I do in VS Code in their text editors. That's not an approach that I recommend if you're new. I say if all of this is new to you, I say you follow the video as close as you can so that you can encounter the least amount of issues. So with that said, what we're gonna do is that we're simply gonna Google VS Code, and here we're gonna click on download, and it's gonna give us our download link. We're using Windows, so we're gonna click on the Windows installation file. It's gonna take a little bit to download, and we're going to install it. The installation of VS Code is like any other program, really. There is no science to this. Accept the licensing agreement. Next, next, next. Install. And we can close that because we don't need it anymore. And let's close that because we don't need it either. Once we have installed VS Code, we need to install a couple of extensions here, which are these over here. For text editors, extensions are like little programs that enhance the usability of a particular program, in this case our text editor. Throughout the semester, we're going to be using all of these extensions, so it's good to get them out of the way, to get the installation of them right out of the way. It just makes our life easier. So once it's installed, we're going to let it launch it right away, so that we can get the installation of those extensions right away. So I'm going to put it here on the side so that I can have this split view like this. When I click on the little GR icon in the corner over here, I'm going to click on extensions. Then we're going to search for the extensions. Let me just make this a little bigger over here. And the first one is live server. I'm gonna click on install, and then we search for the next one, which is called Markdown All-in-One. It is this one over here, so we're gonna click on install. Then we're gonna look for Markdown Preview Enhanced, which happens to be this one over here. So then we're gonna look for Markdown PDF, which is this one over here. Then Markdown Table of Content. Let me see if it's available right away. No, it's not. So I'm just gonna do Markdown TOC, which is this one over here. We're gonna look for Markdown Converter, PDF Preview, which is this one here. And finally, Code Spell Checker. Okay, now that we have done this, we can close this right now because we're not going to use it for a little bit. Instruction number 2 says create a GitHub account using your PCCC email address. If you already have a GitHub account using your PCCC email address, you don't have to do this part over here. You can skip it because you already have an account. You can just go straight to number 3. Now, I have an account with GitHub. So what I'm going to do is, I don't think, okay, I'm gonna pause the video now so that I can get the password, because I don't think I remember it from the top of my head. And then I'll get back here. But in the meantime, let's just go to github.com, click on sign up. And this is no different from signing up for pretty much any other social media account that you have. It's asking for an email address. We provide an email address. Let me see. I think Alberto at. Okay, I already have a GitHub account with that email address, but once you provide your email address, just follow the prompts, and once you have a GitHub account, then we're gonna move into step number 3. So allow me to sign in real quick, and I'll be right with you. Okay, I have already signed into my GitHub account over here. Yours is gonna look like this. So what we want to do is that we're gonna go back to our instructions, and we're going to create a repository called CIS 106. And to do that is very simple. All we have to do is create new, provide the repository name, which is CIS 106. I already have a repository called CIS 106, so in my case this error message pop up. But what you can do is that, in your case, you won't have this issue because it's the first time you're taking my class, unless you have taken it before. All you have to do is provide just another name there, CIS 106 hyphen Spring 21 or Spring 22 or SP 22, however you choose to name it. It is important that you remember the naming convention that you use, and I suggest you use lowercase here only. So once we create this, you don't need to provide a description, but it's always good to do so. So I'm going to put a Spring 22 semester. We're going to leave it as public, and we're going to click on create repository. And that's it. That's all you have to do. Let's go back here. Don't close this page. Leave it open. And let's continue here. Do not close the page. You're going to need it later. Now, in question number 2. In your documents folder, create a folder called lab 0. All lowercase. So I'm going to go here on my documents. I'm going to go to documents, and I'm going to create a folder called lab 0. Download the following compressed file. So what we're going to do is that we are going to go to this URL. I'm going to select it, right click, and go to that URL. And we're going to click on download. This is going to be located in our downloads folder. Okay. Decompress the zip folder inside your Lab 0 folder. And there are a couple of ways you can do that. For instance, you can open the zip file, and if you have a program like RAR installed in your computer or any other program that you have, you can just drag and drop that into the Lab 0 folder. Another way that we can do that is we can go to downloads and we can click on, in my case, since I have WinRAR installed, I can extract the file right there. If you don't have this program installed, it will probably open with Windows Explorer, which we can do by doing this, and it's gonna open like this. We can simply copy this and paste it inside our folder here, and that's it. Open VS Code and open the Lab 0 folder. So we're gonna go here and we're gonna type VS Code. Okay, and we're gonna click on Open Folder. You can also get to this window by going to File and click on Open Folder, and then we're gonna go to Documents and click on the folder and then click on Select Folder. It is imperative that you always work inside a folder. Yes, trust these authors. You always work inside a folder because some of the extensions that we installed earlier are only going to work if you are working inside a folder. You can always tell by looking at the side pane over here, and if you see the name of the folder, then that means you are working on a folder. VS Code, text editor, and a code editor, it's not like your Microsoft Word processor. We don't work in a document by document phase here. We work in an environment. We work in a workspace, which is the folder that you created. So keep that in mind. A lot of the issues that students have throughout the semester, it's one-to-one related to the fact that they were editing a file directly, but they were not working inside a folder, which caused things to not show up properly. So once we have this, let's go back to the instructions and let's see. Okay, we finished with question number 2. Let's go back to question 3. Read this presentation. What is Markdown? I'm going to go through the presentation in the video as well, but you can read it ahead of time if you desire. This is important. The goal of this lab is to learn and practice Markdown. As we go over the presentation, I will be completing the steps here. In that way we can do, kill two birds with one stone. So I'm going to click here. And this is the presentation about what Markdown is. So, what is Markdown? Markdown is a markup language, similar to HTML. Markdown allows you to write simple, plain text documents with very few highlighting options that you can use here and there. Markdown was invented by John Gruber in 2004. The focus of Markdown is to allow the user to focus on writing the document itself. Forget about the formatting, forget about the HTML, forget about all of that. Just focus on the content of the document that you're writing. The goal of this is to make a standard that is future-proof. Something that can be plugged into any application, something that can be taken here and used somewhere else with ease. Markdown is extremely light and it's extremely simple and easy to use, and that is what made it such a popular option for writing markup documents. There are multiple implementations of Markdown because Markdown is a standard. You have Common Mark, Multi-Markdown, and GitHub Flavor Markdown. GitHub Flavor Markdown is what we are going to be using in this course because this course relies heavily on GitHub, and everything that you are going to give me is in the form of a GitHub URL. So we're going to be using GitHub a lot throughout the semester, so it makes sense that the version of Markdown that we learn is the GitHub Flavor Markdown. The beauty of this is that if you learn one version, the other versions just have extra formatting. So the things that you learn in one version are at least 90% compatible with the versions that the other versions that exist in the market. So why are you learning this? I thought this was a Linux course. Why are you learning this stuff? Well, first of all, because everything you're going to give me is in a Markdown document. That's one thing. Second, because it's an easy thing to learn. Actually, that's the most important reason. It's something so simple and easy that there is no reason why you shouldn't learn it. And the next reason is because Markdown allows you to write text that you can easily convert into HTML sites, PDF documents, docx, even PowerPoint presentations. Markdown is used in a lot of technologies. It's heavily used by GitHub and GitLab. It's used by static websites generators like Hugo and Jekyll, where developers can focus on writing the content of the page and forget about the code. Note-taking apps use Markdown a lot, so even social media websites and other communication platforms have integrated Markdown to allow for a more rich, feature-based text operation. And also, Markdown is the industry standard for writing documentation. And in this course, you are gonna be writing a big document, which is your final project. So it kind of makes sense for you to get used to the things that are used in the market, considering the fact that eventually you will apply for a job, right? So, with that said, let's get started learning what Markdown is. So the first thing that I want you to know is, in your document, you have headings. For example, let's go to Wikipedia real quick. Wikipedia. I want to show you something. And let's look for the word dog. So, this over here is a heading. This over here is a heading. This is also a heading. And this is a heading. Notice the difference between these two. Headings normally separate different sections of a document, right? And this is something we can do in Markdown, and it's good to use it because it allows us to organize our document in a professional and a smart way. On top of that, headings allows us to generate what is this? Table of content, where users can easily navigate our document without having to scratch their heads or scroll up and down eternally trying to find a particular section. So how do we format headings in Markdown? Well, what I want you to do is, let's go over here and let's create a Markdown file. So we're gonna create a file called what is Ubuntu submission.md, right? So let's go over here. And if you want, you can create the file right here in VS Code by clicking on this icon over here and then providing a name to your file. What is Ubuntu submission.md? And the document has been created and we open it right over here. You can also go to the folder and create a document and create it over here by going to New, Simple Text, I am a file.md. Notice that the file appears here right away. Now we don't need that, so we can delete it. By the way, if your computer is not showing you file extensions like mine is, you can simply go to View and click on File Name Extensions over here, and now you can have file extensions enabled, which is important that you enable file extensions, so might as well go do it. I'll close that. Let's go back over here. So, using Markdown, replicate the document what is ubuntu.pdf that is located inside the Lab 0 folder. So what we want to do is that we want to open this folder over here. And if you want, you can just simply open it right here. And because we have PDF preview, we can just preview the document over here in VS Code without a problem. Or you can open it in your favorite PDF viewer, however you choose. I'm just going to open it right over here for the sake of simplicity. So this is a heading, right? So is this. So what I want to do is that I'm going to format my headings first so that we can practice. Go. I'm going to hide this because I don't need it right now, and I want to put it side by side. So headings 1, which is the biggest heading in your site, is going to be formatted this way. One number sign, let's increase the size of this, a space, and then the title, and then the heading, right? Ubuntu. And that's it. Now, if we're going to create heading 2, right, which is a subheading under Ubuntu, we simply provide two number signs, and that's it, or hashtags. Background, right? Features. Notice that this heading over here is a subheading under features. So this is gonna be heading number 3. Security. Now we go back to heading number 2 because this is a new section of our document. Notice the two pound signs. This is a subheading over here under heading 2, so this is heading 3. This is not a heading, this is just bold letters, but this is. This over here is heading 4. And now we're going back to heading number 2. Now, one of the extensions that we installed is called Markdown Preview Enhance. So what I want to do is that I want to close this document real quick. And anytime that you're writing this document, if you want to take a look at how the ultimate document is going to look like, you can always do this. Right click and click on Preview Enhance. It's going to open a pane on the side that is going to show you how your document is looking like. As you can see, this is the biggest heading, heading 1. Heading 2, heading 2, heading 3, heading 2, 3, 3, 4, 2. So we can close that. And that's how headings work in Markdown. As simple as that. Okay, now how do we write paragraphs? Right, because now we have the headings, now we would like to write some paragraphs. Paragraphs are very simple. You don't have to do any special formatting for that. Just start writing. That's it. Just start writing. Done. For instance, let's go back here and let's open our document. If I were to write this paragraph, right, I'm just going to copy and paste it here for the sake of simplicity. And I suggest you to do the same, copy and paste, because as a matter of fact, I'm going to open it in a actual PDF viewer because that is what acting up. Okay, so what I want is I want to copy this. And I'm going to paste it over here. And that's a paragraph. You want to type a second paragraph, you put in a space in between, and then you start typing. For instance, we have our second paragraph over here. And if you do a preview, see how it's looking like. See, paragraphs are quite simple. Now, there are other things that you can do to paragraphs. For instance, this over here, this is a hyperlink. This is a hyperlink. This is bold text, bold, and this is italics. So this is a special formatting that we can apply to words, right? This we can do in Markdown. For instance, let's say you want to bold text. Simply surround it with a pair of stars. pair of stars surround the particular word or sentence that you want to bold, and the paragraph is bolded. For example, in our document over here, we want to bold the word canonical. So what we're going to do is we're going to go here, and we're going to put 2 stars over here, 2 stars over here, and it's bold. We also want to bold end of life, and we also want to bold Nguni philosophy. I'm sorry if I'm butchering that. And that's it. If we want to italize some text, we can do it with this. We can either provide a single star, and it will italize the text for us, or some Markdown versions allow you to do it by simply providing underscore. Whichever of the 2 choices you pick. I prefer to use a single star. Now, let's save our document and preview. Notice that this has been italicized over here, and that the bolding works. Okay, so now that we have learned how to do that, let's keep it moving. Another thing that you can do is that you can use a strike through, which is striking a line through a particular text. We can do it with 2 tilde characters. For instance, if I want to strike through the word Ubuntu over here, I can provide 2 tilde characters here, 2 tilde characters here, and it will draw a line in the middle. Now, since that is then part of our document, I'm just going to go back on that. But I wanted to show you how to do it. Something interesting. You cannot use underline with Markdown, because underline in a website indicates a URL. And that is a limitation of Markdown that, unfortunately, nothing you can do about it. Okay, working with lists. And working with lists is quite simple. Just number, period, and then whatever you want to number. That's it. For instance, this is a number list of pets. So you have 1 pets, and then under there, if you provide a tab, you can create another list under that particular list, and so on and so on and so on. For example, in our document over here, we have this is a good example of a number list. So Ubuntu Desktop Edition, right? So we have this over here. So I'm going to go to Ubuntu Desktop Edition. By the way, I'm not going to complete the entire document in the video, just to keep it simple. I'm just using examples from the presentation. Your job is to complete it on your own. Complete the entire document, and that's going to be your submission. I'm just doing examples over here to keep the video short. So if I want to create this list over here, it's actually quite simple. So I can just type period, 1 and period and a space, and that starts the number list right there. So yes, whatever you want. 2 gigahertz, for example. The moment I press enter, number 2 is provided automatically for me. 4 gigabytes. 25 gigabytes. Right? And if I want to create a list under a list, all I have to do is tab, and it will automatically start the numbering from 1. Right? And I can do item 1, item 2, item 3. And if I want to go back to my previous list so I can continue listing, all I have to do is backspace once. And it remembers that you were on item 3 here and continues with item 4. So I'm going to delete this because I wanted to provide you an example of a number list. Now, if you want to create a bulleted list, similar to how you have it over here, it's actually quite simple. All you have to do is provide a star and a space. That's it. For instance, we're going to do a star, a space, AMD64, enter, and notice that the list starts going automatically. IARM64, PPC64EL, And the same thing applies. If I want to create an unordered list under an unordered list, I just tap and I continue item 1, item 2, item 3, and I can go back. You can use other symbols too. It doesn't need to be necessarily a star. You can just you can apply a plus sign, a space, and it will do the same thing. Item, 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 and you can mix and match them too. For example, item, 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 and the beauty of this is that this is going to translate still as a dotted list. If I save and I do a preview, notice that regardless of my mixing matching symbols over here, it is still translated as a dot. I'm going to close this. And let's delete this because we don't need it. That was just for an example. Okay, here's another example. And let's talk about block quotes. What are block quotes? Block quotes are these. This is a block quote. How do you make them? Simple. Start your paragraph with this sign. For example, let's copy this. And in background, that's it. That's it. That's a block quote. For example, if I go here in Preview Enhance, notice that my block quote has been beautifully formatted already. That's it. You can do multi-line quotes too, as you can see over here. For example, I'm going to put this on another line. And look how it previews. That's it. Code blocks. Now, code blocks are useful when you're explaining code or you're explaining commands, right? And this is very good because when you're writing your final project documentation, and sometimes when you're doing my assignments, you're going to have to provide commands as an answer. And in a beautiful way of preparing your document and your documentations is by highlighting code as exactly that, as a code block. It allows the reader of your document to understand that you are providing a piece of code in there. Allow me 1 second, please. This is important. Okay, I am back. So, how do we do code blocks? Well, there are two ways. If you're simply writing one line of code, right? You just want to highlight a single line of code. The best way to do it is with a backtick. You surround the particular code in a backtick and you're good to go. For example, this is great when you're explaining a single command, like an example here. To update Ubuntu, use the following command. I want this to be displayed in a single line, so I simply surround this with backtick. Now, if it is a multi-line code block, I suggest you use this format over here. 3 backticks, you put whatever code you put in there, and then you close it with 3 backticks. Now let's take a look at how that looks like in an actual example. And we have one over here in our document. This is a single line. So I'm going to copy this text here, and we're going to format it real quick. Now this is the command here. If I provide backtick in the beginning, backtick in the end, notice that the coloring changes, and I can simply put this on a single line. If I do a preview, notice how it looks like. Appears in a single line. Perfect. Now if I want to do a block quote, if I want to do a code block, I would start with 3 backticks. I would place my code over here, and then I'm going to end it with 3 backticks. Let's go back over here and let's use this as an example. And if we do a preview, notice how it looks. That's how you format code, or at least in your documentation, how you can format it so that it looks distinct from your regular text, which is a good idea. Let's close that. Let's go back here. Now, links. This is the only thing in Markdown that you will have to literally remember. And the only thing that is really a little bit, maybe a tiny bit complicated, which is how do we format hyperlinks, right? For hyperlink, you have to follow this formula. In square brackets, you put the particular word that you want highlighted. In parentheses, you put the URL, and then you continue typing. For instance, we have here a link. Let's click on this link to see where it takes us. It takes us to this URL over here. So we're going to copy this URL. I'm going to go back to our document. And let's say that I want to do exactly that, right? I am going to create Linux. I want to make Linux distribution a hyperlink. So I put an open bracket here, close a square bracket over here, open parentheses, and then inside here I put my URL. When I save it, notice that the moment I open the preview enhance, this becomes blue. It has been converted into our hyperlink now. When the user clicks here in Linux distribution, it takes them to this link. And that's how you create hyperlinks in Markdown. It's literally this, and how to use images is the only thing that's a little tricky of Markdown. Everything else is a breeze. Now, for images, the same formula. The difference is you need to provide an exclamation mark at the beginning. So for example, let's say I'm going to Google a picture of a cat. A cat. I'm going to click over here and I'm going to copy image link. Right? And I'm going to insert the picture of a cat into my document. I can simply do exclamation mark, open in quotes bracket, and here I need to provide a description to my image. And I'm going to say image of a cat. And then I'm going to put in here the URL to the particular image, which I copied from the internet. If I click on save and I do preview enhance, notice that my picture loaded successfully. If you don't see the picture here, it's because the URL is wrong. The URL doesn't resolve into an image, but that's the only reason why. Now, you can also load images located inside your computer. That's also possible. How do we do that? It's actually quite simple. For example, this picture over here called budget.png is located inside the lab 0 files, right? So what we can do is we need to provide a path to that image. For example, I'm going to call this Ubuntu budget. That's the description that I want to give to my image. Now, my document is located outside of this folder. So I need to tell Markdown where that picture is located. And we do it by providing the name of the folder, which is relative to the location of my file, because the file and the folder are in the same place. Lab 0 files. And then I need to provide the name of the image. In Windows, paths are written using a backslash. In Linux, they are done using a /. So I'm going to provide the name of my image, which is budgie.png. And I'm going to save my document. Let's take a look at the preview real quick. And as you can see, this is my image. Now, to make our life easy, what I want you to do is, I want you to go to your folder and take those images, cut them, and put them right here where your file is. The reason why we're doing it this way is because if the file and the picture are inside the same folder, you do not need to provide a path. You can just provide the name of the picture. Later on, as we progress in the course, we're going to play around with placing the picture in different folders. But for now, let's make things easy on our end. So, over here, if I want to put this picture inside my file, I can simply do exclamation mark, open bracket, provide a description. I'm going to call it core image, and then open and close parentheses, and inside here the name of the image, which is core.png. Click on save, and if we go here, notice that my picture loads perfectly fine. Okay, so we're gonna delete this. This is how you do images in Markdown. It's a little bit complicated, but trust me, after you do it for a little bit, and you will be doing it quite a lot, it will come naturally to your head. Okay, now tables. Tables are also a little bit complicated. And sorry, I said that links were the only thing, but tables are a bit complicated. But you'll get the hang of it. You get the hang of it pretty quick, especially because you're not going to be building a lot of tables, right? So as long as you remember this basic syntax, you'll be fine. And I'm always there to help you out figuring things out. So when it comes to creating a table, and we have one that we are going to create here, which is this one over here. Let's create this table real quick, right? Let's create this table. So, and this table is under releases. So we're gonna go to releases here. What I always do when I work on tables with Markdown is that I put one space before, one space after, and I work in the middle, right? And first we provide the first column, right? And it's a pipe. And this is gonna be the header, which is this part over here. And it's gonna be version, which is the first column, version. Then we're gonna put another pipe to provide the next column, which is code name. Another pipe, and then release date. And then finally another pipe. That's gonna close our column. So we have one column, two columns, three columns. We're gonna press enter. Then we're gonna click save. If you preview your document right now, take a look at how your table is looking like. Scroll all the way here and see. We have the first row, literally the first row, which is just the heading of the table. So let's close that and let's continue our design. So, pipe, what's the version? 1404 LTS. Pipe, and then what is the code name? Trusty tar. And then the release date, which is 2014-04-17, and then end of the row. What I like to do to keep it consistent is that I like to have my table to look nice here. This simply allows me to, I don't know, keep it pretty while I'm writing. If you save and you go here and you do a preview, notice that we have a perfectly formatted table over here. Now, we can continue adding more items to this table. Right? We have 1604 LTS. Pipe is called Senial Zerus. And it was released in 2016, 04, 21. Pipe. you get the hang of it. Now continue writing it until you have completed this table. Practice as much as you can. Another table that I would like to talk about is this table over here, because notice that this table has pictures, descriptions. It's a little bit more complicated than this table over here. So why don't we build it just as an example. So let's go to official distributions, and again let's work on the heading. So we go pipe and description, which is distribution logo. Okay, then we have distribution name, then we have description, and end over there. And now we're gonna do the first one, which is Kubuntu, right? So I'm gonna copy this over here to have it on the clipboard. Now let's do our little design over here. And the first distribution we have is Kubuntu. That's the distribution logo. Sorry, my mistake. And we have the logos over here because it's something that I provided to you ahead of time. And the picture that we're going to insert is this one. So we're going to start with our bank. Then in in square brackets, we're going to provide the name of our image, a description to our image, and I'm going to say Kubuntu logo. And then in parentheses over here, we're going to provide the location of the image or the image name. Because the file and the pictures are in the same folder, I can just simply provide the name of the image and it will load successfully, which is this one over here. Kubuntu.png. And that's it. The distribution name is Kubuntu. And the description, which I pasted to the clipboard, is this one over here. Now, allow me to format this a little better, just for sake of clarity. And that's it. Now let's do a little preview over here. And notice how beautiful our table looks. Now, this is an example that I provided you. Using this example, please replicate it down and practice building this table one or twice as you see fit. Again, when I create tables, I like to leave a little space on top, one space in the bottom, just so that it formats, nice and neat. I have noticed that every once in a while, when I don't do this, the table doesn't format or doesn't preview correctly. It's just a nitpick. Okay, you have also an example on the presentation that you can always refer to whenever you want. Now, this is a GitHub-specific Markdown, which is the ability to create checkboxes. It's something that we're not going to use, but I figure I'll put it in there as well, because why not? And another GitHub-specific feature is the ability to color code the particular code that you're writing if you provide the language that you're writing the code for. Again, not something that we're going to use in the course, but I figure might as well show it to you. This, for example, is how these code blocks will look like when you're writing them in their particular programming language. And this is how they will preview when you put them in GitHub. That's in your GitHub documentation. That's how the code block will look like. Notice that the syntax highlighting, it gets carried over, which is pretty neat, but that's GitHub specific and it's not something we're going to use anyway. But it's always good to know. Now, we saw a lot of things, and I don't expect you to remember them from the top of your head. What I do expect you is that you download this cheat sheet and you have it printed or saved in your computer. And why is it took me here? This is no bueno, because that's not what I want. Oh, Markdown cheat sheet. This one is good too, but Nope, it's not better than the one that was supposed to be there in that particular. This is the official Markdown documentation, by the way, which is good. This is the one. You can download this cheat sheet, which I am going to update the URL in the presentation for you later, which has pretty much examples of everything we saw in this video and in this presentation. It is useful to have it handy because some of this syntax you might forget. And yeah, that's about it. Once you finish with question 4, which is literally, and this is the question that's going to take you the most, which is recreating this document. Make sure to copy and paste a bunch of stuff. Just copy and paste the text. You know, the goal here is to practice Markdown. It's not to learn how to type. So copy paste everything that you need to copy paste and type whatever you find is faster to type. And that's about it. Once you have created this document, what we are going to do is that we're going to export this document to PDF, docx, and HTML. Right? So what we're going to do is we're going to go here, and all you have to do is, once you have created your document, you're going to save your document by clicking on File and Save. Then you're going to right click and you're going to export to PDF. You're also going to export to HTML, and I don't know why I included docx there because we're not using that extension, so I'm going to update it later, but you don't have to do the docx. All I need is the PDF and the HTML. So let's click on PDF. This is going to pop up over here, and it's almost done. There you go. And if you click over here, this is your PDF file that you were working on. And if you completed the assignment as you were supposed to, which is recreating this whole document, it's going to look like this. Okay, now let's convert this into an HTML page. And we have a beautifully created and formatted HTML page. And you can right click and go to open with live server. Yes, allow access. And this is going to allow you to preview your website that has been generated from the Markdown document that you created. Let's close that. Let's close that. Let's minimize this because we don't need it. So once you have completed this part over here, we're going to upload all the files inside the Lab 0 folder into our GitHub repository. All of those files, we're going to put them on GitHub. So we're going to go back to GitHub. And did I close it? Probably did. So I'm going to go here. And this is my repository over here, CIS 1061. And this is our file here. We're going to click on import. No, that's not what we want. There you go. Oh my god. Oh, no existing file. Am I blind? I must be blind. Choose your files. Make sure that you save all your files, please. There is a better way of doing this, but I don't want to get. I don't want you to get focused on doing things on Windows because you're not gonna be doing things on Windows for very long. Everything is going to be done on Linux once we install our virtual machines. So there is no point on installing GitHub in your Windows computer and doing the SSH in Windows and all of those stuff because we're not going to be using Windows. We're going to be doing everything on Linux. So we're going to upload this the long way. Unfortunately, because it makes it simple in the future. So we're gonna go on Documents, Lab 0, and we're gonna upload these files here. Perfect. Once you have finished uploading your files, click on Commit Changes over here. Okay, now let's go back to our instructions. And the last thing that we're going to do is submit this assignment. In Blackboard, submit the PDF file, the Markdown file, and the URL to your GitHub repository. So this is the URL that you're going to give me. It should have all of these files, especially these files over here, because this is where I'm going to go. I'm going to compare the PDF file that you're going to give me with this file that I find over here, and they have to look the same. So I'm going to go here. This is the URL you're going to give me. So we're going to copy this. We're going to go to Lab 0. Click on Lab 0. Click on Browse Local Files. Documents, Lab 0. You're going to give me this Markdown file and this PDF file. You're going to upload these two files. And in the description over here, in the comments part, you are going to put the URL. You can also put it in the description. You can write a description and put it over here, whichever you choose, either the comment section of the submission or the description over here, whichever of the two. And then you're going to click on Submit, and you have completed Lab 0. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me via Slack, and I'll be able to provide you assistance with this. I'll see you in the next video.